Since 1st February 2021, the military has been in control of the government of Myanmar, also known as Burma. This happens after having done a successful coup against the democratically elected government and hence establishing what most call a military junta. Hi everyone, I am Shohan and welcome to the Outline. And in this video, we are going to discuss about the military coup in Myanmar and the protests and reactions from various actors regarding the current situation there. Now, to give a brief context and background, Myanmar got independence from British in 1948 and from 1962 up till 2011, its government was fully controlled by the military. There was a vibrant democratic movement in between this time to restore democracy in Myanmar. Many of you would have heard about Aung San Suu Kyi, who was a prominent leader of the democratic struggle, who also won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1991. She later also became a very influential politician in Myanmar after civilian rule was allowed since 2011. Even with the democratic process with elections, the military still retained a significant power in the government system. Now coming to the recent coup of 2021 that happened in February, we can trace the roots of this coup to the 2020 general elections that took place for the parliament. The elections resulted in a decisive victory for the NLD party led by the Aung San Suu Kyi, with having won 61% of votes in the upper house and 58.6% in the lower house. The problem arose when the opposition claimed that there had been widespread fraud and tampering in the election by the ruling government of the NLD. The military backed the opposition, demanding for a rerun of the votes. This demand was actually turned down by the Election Commission, citing that there was no evidence suggesting that there was any kind of tampering with the elections. Now with this, the military in February took over the government just before the opening session of the new parliament, before the swearing in of the new elected representatives. Now, many politicians, including Suu Kyi and many of her ministers and deputies from government, have been arrested or detained. Several charges have been brought up against them, like breaching campaign rules, violating COVID protocols, and publishing information that may cause fear or alarm. After the coup, the commander-in-chief of the military, Min Aung Hlaing, assumed power in Myanmar and has declared a year-long national emergency and further said that the military fully supports the people and would be looking for a true and disciplined democracy and hold free and fair elections after duration of the emergency. I know that these sentences sounds contradictory in nature, but that's what they said. There have been countrywide protests regarding this military takeover, which has been met with brute force from the military. A UN Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights spokesperson said military authorities are showing no sign of letting up in their brutal crackdown on opponents in a bid to consolidate their hold on power. In rural areas and in jungles, people have started forming militia groups to oppose the military junta. In an instance of the same, Myanmar's armed forces battled a local militia group in the northwestern town of Mindat recently to try to quell a rebellion that has sprung to oppose the junta. 5 civilians had been killed in Mindat in the past 2 days, said Dr. Sasa, the Minister of International Cooperation in the shadow national unity government set up to rival the military junta. There has been a similar crackdown of all protests since the coup. According to UNOHCHR, as of 10th May, at least 782 people had been killed as security forces used unnecessary, disproportionate and lethal force to suppress demonstrations and other forms of public participation. Even in the international forum, the military takeover has been subject to condemnation, with many nations asking to enact the will of the people. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has accused the security forces of a reign of terror, and US, UK and the European Union have already placed sanctions on key military officials. The United Nations Security Council also adopted a presidential statement expressing deep concern at the developments in Myanmar following the declaration of the emergency and the arbitrary detention of members of the government. Security Council also condemned the violence against the protesters and called for a constructive dialogue for democratic transition in Myanmar. Now that we know what the problem is, the question arises what can be done regarding this. Many argue that simply going back to the pre-coup system won't be helpful nor desirable. The previous system was based on the 2008 constitution, which was highly influenced by the military. giving military full autonomy for its own conduct and not answering to the elected bodies. Adding to that, the military also appointed 110 out of the 440 members in the lower house of the Parliament of Myanmar. Hence, for sustainable change towards democracy, there needs to be some higher degree of change towards the principles of justice. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like the video and subscribe the channel for more. Thank you.